Welcome to the Journos here on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Hugh MacDonald and Gordon Parks here with me. Sponsored by Cameron Commercial Vehicles. If you're looking for a quality new or used van, get on to CameronCommercials.com. Sean's your man to help you out with all that you need for your business. We're here in the Hummel Studios and looking forward to talking about quite a fair few things, including our top 50 best players since 1975 in the Premier League. Now, Hugh, as you know, I don't want to get caught out with a left hook from people on this, because if people enter on our website, they can just put in a player that they think's in the top 50, not necessarily the best player, although we'll accept that as well. But when you register your votes, you're in with a chance of winning a painting of your favourite player from Gio Thompson. But as I was researching it, I started to really go down the rabbit hole and think to myself, my God, there's more than a few players later on in this programme we're going to be talking about that we've maybe forgotten about out of left field.
Well, see, when you're talking about 50 from 1975, apart from Rangers and Celtic and that, I would say most of the Dundee United team just get, so that's 11 right away.
Yeah.
Most of the Aberdeen team gets in as well, so that's 22.
And there's a treble-winning Rangers side from 1978.
You just say to yourself, it just goes on, and that's without going on to players that, shall we say, smaller clubs, you know. I mean, even Hearts, maybe John Robertson's going to have a shout for.
We're going to announce the 50 at the end of July, Hugh,
right.
before we start the new season, and we're going to get pelters for it.
That's a good thing about you shouldn't. I think all these lists, I've done lists this before, you know, best ground in Scotland. I actually did a one best Scottish player since 1963, and you're going to get pelters. But that's what it's all about. It's a pub argument.
Yeah, it's a brilliant pub argument.
Is there a loophole in it though? If you're talking about somebody that's excelled at a lower league club but has played in the Premier League.
Well, you talk about like an Andy Ritchie or something like that.
Or Jerry McCabe.
Well, Jerry is adamant and wants me to tell you personally that he demands to be in that top 5.
but it's, I mean, the thing about it is, I mean, I'll go on record right now, and I'm there to be proved wrong on it, but I don't think Souness gets in the top 50.
Because his greatness was at Liverpool?
Yeah, well, over and above that, I thought he was, you know, he's at the tail end of his career. Do you know what I mean? He's a short period of time in there. You know, there's absolutely no doubt if you're looking...
So that's the question, is there a passport element to this, right? Once you get a passport stamped and you've been an 18, 19-year-old in the Premier League, but you do brilliantly at Hamilton Accies, how does that? So how do we weigh it? Is it what you've achieved in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think over and above that. I mean, McLeish would have a strong claim on the basis that he...
10 years.
He'd spent 10 years, but from 75 to 77, he also got a double. And he for 2 years, I would go as far as to say 76 and 77. You know, there's nobody better in the Premier League than...
Oh, you're
know?
pushing an open door with him. It's interesting with Souness because that's a really good dichotomy, because when I did the greatest Scottish player of all time, I think Souness was in the top 5.
Yeah.
But Hugh McIlvanney, a friend of ours both,
yes,
he was really strong that he said, do you know what, I think he's the best Scottish player ever.
Well,
he said.
Speaking of Hugh,
wow, that's an interesting one.
Hugh was the chairman of the
Hall of Fame,
of Fame, of which I was certainly in it. Was you in it at any point?
Yeah.
Right.
I was on the board.
So, all the inductees should more or less be in that, regardless, shouldn't they? Because that speaks of their pedigree.
No, the Scottish Football Hall of Fame was basically people's contribution to Scottish football overall. You know, I think that was the criteria here.
You got guys like John McGovern and Billy Bremner, obviously.
The point I'm making is, I mean, I remember sitting in one lunch and Tommy Burns was the conversation point. Tommy didn't get in.
No.
But I was watching Brian McClare's top 11 teammates.
Yeah.
Tommy was in that, and you look at the players that Chalky played with, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no exact science to it, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, no, none at all.
No.
I mean, I always remember that long flight to Belgrade. I was sitting next to Davy Provan and I had 5 hours to get away. I said, right, starter for 10. I said, name your Celtic team of the players that you played with.
Yeah.
And he says, Roy Aitken. And I says, you're not playing him in goal, where are you playing him? He said, I don't know yet, but he's the first name on my team sheet. So that was an interesting discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we'll address this a little later on as well, but I started to look, and as I started to research right across the board and thinking to myself, well, I've got to look at an Aberdeen, I've got to look at a Dundee United, I've certainly got to look at Rangers trebles of the early 70s, of the 75, 78, and then you've actually got to say to yourself, well, you've got to start looking at other players out with. I think, you know, the criteria for it is, you're right, Hugh, it's very difficult to actually nail it down. You can't turn around and say, is it the best player who's better than anybody else? Because then you just fill it full of Celtic and Rangers players, and foreign players at that. You know, so overall contribution, winning things, maybe entertainment value, maybe cult status, maybe maverick status, maybe enjoyment overall for players. Because I was actually looking at, and I'm not going to preempt it because I want to go back to it and give it greater detail, but as I was starting to look at it, I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute, you know, you've got Billy Stark, you've got Caballero, you've got Georgie Nimzadze, you've got Claudio Caniggia, you've got Charlie Nicholas, you've got Ian Jess, you've got Steve Archibald. Steve Archibald's got a good shout, because not only did he excel at Aberdeen, but he came back and was, you know, he was at Hibs, but it wasn't half the player he was. But
even guys like Jim Duffy.
Jim Duffy's another great shout. Yeah, Jim Duffy's
He won
great story about.
He won Player of the Year one year.
Yeah,
Stevie Archibald came to Clyde.
great shout, Hugh.
Stevie Archibald came to Clyde and turned up for training in his his Rolls Royce.
Rolls Royce, yeah.
Just class. Eric Black. Where is Eric Black?
Eric Black's a shout, isn't he? Eric Black.
Well,
was,
anybody played for that Aberdeen team. I went up and saw Simmy the other week there. So I read his book before I went up. And I was all fee with the whole thing.
yeah,
I mean, because I lived through that. But once you start reading the book, you go, goodness gracious. The players that people don't celebrate so much now, we all talk about, rightly talk about Strachan, McLeish, Miller, Leighton. But players like John McMaster, Doogie Bell,
Yeah.
Simmy himself,
does Hans Heelhouse and Ian Jess get mentioned?
got to, because they were the Hearts. They had to come to Glasgow and not get beat.
Do you not find something that's really interesting when you talk to the old timers that were part of that kind of magnificent period? Ian Redford gets mentioned by his own teammates.
Yeah.
There's people. There's one thing the fans have in their opinion. It's the dressing room. It tells you.
No.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting point, because it goes back to that David Providence thing right away, saying Roy Aitken.
I'll give you another player that I think is an absolute great shout for an argument on it. Bobby Russell.
Brilliant.
When you find old Shelton Jr., man, my old team as well.
Yeah. Listen, there's so many that it's going to be great. You know, the competition itself is good because you can put in any player you want. As soon as you register for it, it doesn't cost you any money. What it will do is it'll give us a whole list of people that we can pick, one lucky winner, and then you pick the player that you want painted, and Gio Thompson will work his magic. You'll get the canvas, stick it on your wall, and we have no responsibility whatsoever for the female or male winner who, you know, then goes on to have an argument in their relationship in their house because the painting is on the wall and it's not going down well. I'm just I just thought
Talk about looking round corners. That's a biggie.
I just thought
One of the great things about living alone, she's come into my house and you see the paintings, and I don't care what anybody thinks. Somebody once came out of the house and said, that tail is too big for this room, and I went, no, it's not.
yeah.
Because I'm the only one that sits and watches it.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered all bases. I've started to put a lot of thought into it. Give us some of yours and go on the PLZ Soccer website and click on the top 50 players. Register now. It doesn't need to be the best player, maybe the player that gave you the most enjoyment, and then we'll come up with a definitive list, and then we'll pick out a lucky winner. Good luck with that. There's lots of great competitions coming up, I can tell you. We're bringing the predictor back, Hugh.
Oh God, that always costs me money every year.
Yeah, well, we've got the sponsor, we've got the chance to give away some of the prizes we're going to be giving away. We're going to give away a car, We're going to be giving away Champions League tickets. We're going to be giving away Premier League tickets in England. We're going to be giving away great weekends. There's going to be lots of superb prizes, monthly prizes as well. I think it's going to be well worth it. It was good fun when we had it.
It's good fun for you, because I had to end up buying you dinner at the end of every season.
Listen, with that in mind, thank you to Elite Joinery and Fire Protection. The boys are coming on. You'll be able to meet the boys because they're coming on Saturday to our Champions League event. We're going to watch the Champions League. Tam McManus is going to be speaking. And over and above that, if you are at a loose end and you're looking for maybe 9 of your mates to have a night out, studio at plzsoccer.com. There's still a couple of tables left for it. But what a day it's going to be. The Elite Joinery and Fire Protection quiz question. I thought we'd go back to Hugh's halcyon days. It was, I think, for many people, Hugh, the first World Cup in colour.
It was for me, aye.
People who were lucky enough to have a colour television could see.
Did you have one, Hugh?
We got one, especially not because my dad was interested in football, but he was getting one anyway, and it was so that was the.
Was this the MacDonald move from poverty to wealthy phase?
It was just after the escape from Glasgow to sunny Busby.
I love that. There's a period, and because I've been with him 14 years, I've listened to all the stories, and I know that there's a fine line where people of his ilk can mention we're now moving from the outside toilet to an inside house and a colour telly.
Although, to be fair, my granny and grandpa on both sides never moved from the outside toilet.
Is that right?
No, I lived and died in that. So it's a lot more recent than people think. But 1970 was huge because I was 15 at the time. Just the right age for it. Colour telly and great teams in it.
Yes.
I mean, the England team in it was better than 66. The England team was terrific.
Do you think it was better than 66?
I think the England team was better than 166.
It would be interesting, actually, for many an England aficionado to suggest then, who's dropping out of the 66 team to be replaced by a 1970 player? Is it an Alan Mullery? You know?
Well, the thing about it was a lot of the good 66 players, like the world-class 66 players, were still playing.
Yeah.
Like Banks, Charlton and Moore. But there was legs coming into the team like Colin Bell. There was Franny Lee, etc.
Was Jeff Astle in it?
He missed an absolute sitter. But the reason I'm so strong on them is they were very, very, very unlucky to lose to Brazil. They should have got at least a draw against Brazil.
Yeah. Were they unlucky to lose to Germany?
Well, the thing about the German thing is there's great conspiracy theories. One which exploded at the weekend, I don't know, so where there's an indication that the CIA poisoned Gordon Banks, so he missed the game for geopolitical reasons.
Peter Bonetti was in, wasn't he?
Peter Bonetti was in. He sold a couple.
Yeah.
England were 2-0 up against West Germany and cruising it. So Alf Ramsey says we'll take Bobby Charlton off and rest him for the semi-finals. Of course, as soon as Charlton went off, Beckenbauer, who had been not quite man-marking him, but aware of Charlton, suddenly had all the freedom in the world.
Yeah.
And he just changed. Well, him and Muller changed the game.
With that in mind, who scored the goals in the 1970 World Cup final? There was 5 goals scored in that final. It certainly goes down as one of the greatest teams ever in the history. We're going to do that over the summer, Hugh. We're going to talk about the greatest team. And we're allowing the period where they were dominant. So you will be able to get that 4-year period of the AC Milan argument in, and the 4-year period of Barcelona, and obviously Brazil.
Brazil. Hungary, and I don't know how far you would like to go back.
Yeah, no, you can get Hungary in if you wanted, and you'll also get a chance to get Celtic in at 65 to 74. So. Yep. Interesting. Who scored the goals in the 1970 World Cup final? And if you're one of those people who doesn't look it up immediately on Google, good luck with it. If you're old enough and you remember it, good luck with it as well. 4 goals from the Brazilian end, 1 from the Italian. So there you are. I'm giving you a helping hand. Okay. Parsley, what did you make of St Mirren staying in the Premier League after that playoff win over Partick Thistle?
Fortuitous. Dodged a bullet. Partick Thistle deserved, for me, with a better team. I think they rode their luck with failing to appoint Craig McLeish. Take my hat off to him. He was really emotional after it. He spoke really well. I think he's grown into the role, but they let the dice roll and the numbers came up, and I don't think it was really merited. I feel sorry for Partick Thistle, but I just felt that the physicality won them the end. I think there was that kind of Premier League kind of physicality that Partick Thistle didn't have. They dodged the bullet. I think they get out of jail.
I thought they were woeful, Hugh. They were terrible to watch. I mean, if somebody's talking about Craig McLeish has suddenly gotten them playing more football, well, I didn't see them capable of playing it. I thought they were woeful to watch, and survived, and luckily, as Parsley rightly points out, by the skin of their teeth. Thistle, if anything, probably, that final third they needed to be more clinical.
That was particularly at that level. That's when it shows, because people who are really good in the final third are prized at a much higher level, and that's what came up. And it's understandable, I was just thinking having somebody like Brian Graham in the team, for example, who missed out so many times for Partick Thistle, away to Ross County now, of course. Yeah. Maybe with that, I've got them over the line.
It changes the way you actually. Sometimes a player can change the way you actually get the service into the box. That Brian Graham argument is a good one, Hugh, because quite simply, there was one moment where Tony Watt absolutely skinned the big guy, the menacing Gogic, skinned Gogic. And he's cutting it back to the edge of the box. He might have looked and said, well, Brian Graham's in there, I'll float it in and he'll attack it. You know what I mean?
Well, the two options, if you've got Brian Graham, and if you've got somebody like Lawrence Shankland, Shankland's going to the edge of the box. Shankland's saying, this is the best place where you can cut it back. I mean, that's what happened. I think it's one of my mantras in football. Seeing the final third, good players make good decisions. And you can tell. One of the great things I love is, see if you see a breakaway, even at Champions League level, when they're breaking away, you say to them, watch this decision, because the decision is always good. They always pick not always, but they regularly pick the right option, and the execution's very good.
There's a lot of naivety in their performance, and I think a lot of players will wake up the following day and regret. There was free kicks where they could be more inventive. They were hitting the wall with free kicks the last minute. One is a classic example. Yeah. They needed to show more class to try and... The pick and the pass option, the intelligence in the final third is what let them down, and physicality beat them.
They had a great support there too, didn't they? I mean,
they've got a smashing support. I mean, I was at they did that premiere of one team in Glasgow, the 4-part documentary, and I was there. And a lot of that story is actually a fan story. It's all about, it's quite a universal story. It's not to me, it wasn't a specific Thistle story. It was how fans glue to a club and how they sustain it, and you got the real feeling of real enthusiasm. But it's like everything else now. They've got real big, challenges, as the young people say, next season, because they're going to lose players. We all know that Aidan Fitzpatrick's away. I would think it likely Gary Stanway goes as well.
Ben Stanway, yeah.
Ben Stanway goes as well.
Gary Stanway was a serial killer in America, wasn't
he? Yeah, and that's another programme. Parsley's doing that programme.
Lethal Final Touch.
Yeah, PLZ Murderers. Parsley's doing that at 12 o'clock tonight.
But I think,
it's true, by the way. The Riverside Killer or something he was.
But
to jump onto that.
One little last thing about Thistle was that when Mark Wilson came on board, that was
transformative.
That was amazing, because that club was. The recruitment was all hodgepodge, and they said, well, he's got a squad, but he's not got a team out of this. Yeah. And what he and Alec Ray have done is, superlative. To finish, well second to a very good St Johnstone team, and just miss out. But there'll be no consolation to them. But I think they both deserve enormous credit.
Yeah, it was an open door, though. An open door. the regrets they'll have for that, because this, as you say,
Because St Mirren was
Partick
so
Thistle
poor.
played the football. St Mirren never stood up, and should have been punished.
Yeah, the truth of the pudding is probably a number of St Mirren fans will argue, and by the way, equally so, the St Mirren fans turned out in great numbers. But they'll say, you know, at the end of the day, the stats don't lie. They're there. They scored the all-important goal, and they were able to do the business, and they managed to get that draw at Firhill as well. So St Mirren have got a lot of soul-searching to do. Do you give Craig McLeish the job?
I wouldn't know.
But if you don't give him it, does he stay?
Who knows? I think it's going to be another dogfight next season for them, and they might need somebody with a bit more nous.
Yeah, he's so highly thought of. He's great with the younger players. Let him cut his teeth and continue to do that. Club at St Mirren need a figurehead, somebody to represent the club with that kind of authority. And I think when I looked at the dugout and they were searching for heroes, even in the dugout, it looked as if they were lost.
Okay, Lawrence Shankland has signed for Rangers. He was a Rangers fan. It's his boyhood club. And over and above that, I think a lot of Rangers fans are delighted that they've got one of the best strikers in the Scottish Premiership. He'll be 31 in August. But when you look at his stats, they'll hope that they'll get a good 2 or 3 years out of Lawrence Shankland. It came out of left field for many, because last season when he signs that 3-year deal, all the Hearts fans, they're absolutely delighted. And then suddenly they've been hit with this curveball and they're not happy.
The bombshell. I mean, to negotiate that deal, well done, congratulations, because it laid all the cards in his hands. And you always knew if Rangers had half a brain, they were going to utilise that. They've always got wind of it, which is fair play to them. But the agents, there's been, it's a perfect fit. Lawrence Shankland is the finest of wines in Scottish football at the moment. And what a magnificent signing, because he changes not just the anticipation from the Rangers fans. It's 2 years late, but there's a player who completely at stroke changes the expectation levels, the culture within that club.
Well, he is a goal scorer, Hugh, and that's exactly why I think it's a good bit of business by Rangers.
I mean, there's so many levels to it. One, that was a really cute move by his agent. That's a terrific move. You just tip of the hat to that.
Well, can I ask you something? You're saying tip of the hat to the agent.
I know what you're going to say. What about Hearts?
What about Hearts turning round and saying, wait a minute, some of the Hearts fans will be saying to the board, what are you doing? This guy, you know, everybody was talking about people are in for him. People are talking about signing him last season. Nobody came in and got him. So Hearts suddenly had a situation where they were able to actually turn around and say, well, listen, here's a 3-year deal. Your head's been mush. You wasted a season where you were totally engulfed in, is he going here, is he going there? You lost your way. Hearts lost their way. They didn't get the goals that they wanted from him. His head was all over the place. And then suddenly, when the deal comes in, he's back on. They're within a whisker of winning the Scottish Premiership.
I think the whisker's a big word there. I think if I think the Hearts board could say, right, you're moaning and groaning because he's left for basically nothing. But he did give us a title.
But why did they allow the loophole, Hugh?
Well, I don't know, because you're not in negotiations.
Yeah.
But you're saying to yourself, did they believe that because there's no interest last summer, they could bump his salary up a bit and they would have control? But I don't see the merit in that, because if you're signing a player, you're not signing a player to be mediocre. You're signing a player to have surely in your own eyes, have a good season. And if a good season, and let's be honest about this, the Hearts were saying that the reason they didn't want to announce this to their fans that there was a break because they didn't want to alert clubs.
Yeah.
And you go, come on. Wait, easy, come on.
Yeah.
It's a capital M for naivety. Right? The sporting director is naive, I know that. The chief exec, I don't know enough about it, but they've signed that off. They did it because they had no choice. Because Lawrence Shankland was the individual within the club, the catalyst for everything to drive them forward. He's did what's best for himself, and you always had the feeling that Rangers was Ibrox was his ultimate goal anyway. So they hedged his bets, it's paid off. Naivety.
It's not unusual though for a number of players, and I can recall some contracts where the stipulation is, I'm here, I'll sign for you, but if Real Madrid come in, I'm off skate. Do you know what I mean?
Very rarely do you have a situation where an agent will get allowed to negotiate a deal with that player who's got massive resale on him to leave for nothing. I can't off the top of my head think of many at all.
That leave for nothing.
Leave for nothing.
No, I
Sign
get
a 3-year
that.
deal and get that money.
I get a
Because
release clause with money in it.
Here's the way it works. There's a give and take. You don't get everything your own way. Now, you're right about Lawrence Shankland. Had he have delivered the title, then he could have gone and been happy days. But that is that's too loaded in the player's benefit. I can't think of what you're just saying there, of any player that's been allowed to leave for nothing on the back of a 3-year deal with his money being bumped.
Yeah, usually you do get, from time to time, Hugh, you do get either the player or an agent who basically tipped the wink to say, by the way, this is the fee that will hit the release clause.
No.
You know, they tip the wink on them, you know. But this one just looked so structured towards, by the way, it's geared towards Rangers.
I mean, because, you know...
geared towards Shankland as well, because that's where he wants to go.
And the club saying, saying we didn't want to publicise it. Of course they didn't want to publicise it, but the idea that Scottish football, the people who really matter in Scottish football, i.e. the ones that are potentially going to sign them, didn't know about this release clause. It does strain credulity, doesn't it?
What if that had been announced halfway through the season? That's a dirty secret, right? Let's be honest here, right? They have concealed that. And there's nobody had the appetite to discuss it even, right? Because that would have taken the wind out the sails. That is the dirty secret for Hearts this season, because Lawrence Shankland knew the ticket he was working on. And fair play to him, as every top player should.
Everybody in that negotiation or deal knew, and they knew some time ago.
Yeah, but locked that away though.
Hearts, Lawrence, his agent, and Rangers. This didn't come up on a Saturday night after the Scottish Cup final. So I wonder what Lawrence's situation is.
At some point in those negotiations, they have said no to that, right? And at some point they buckled and capitulated because they had no option. That's my point. Lawrence had them over a barrel, but they have naively folded into that and accepted that as a legitimate contractual agreement. That is staggering, and it's why Hearts fans should be really asking questions and angry, because the prize asset is now gone for zero.
Yeah, but with all with all due respect to Lawrence Shankland, you know, as an employee of Hearts Football Club, he did the business for them.
Absolutely.
And he also did the business against Rangers at Tynecastle because he scored a belter of a goal.
And at Ibrox.
Yeah. So, I mean...
Very well. Oh, no, there's no, absolutely no imputation of any lack of effort, skill, dedication or commitment. I mean, he was with the shining lights. I mean, in many ways, he was dragging the team over the line.
Yeah.
I mean, even at Celtic Park, scoring the goal. So, I mean, no, none of that. I just think the interesting thing is where it leaves both clubs. And I had the view last season that Jamestown the Jamestown influence hadn't really been felt at Hearts. And I still maintain that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But now they've got, we'll see the players that are leaving. Jamestown have now got a broad and open canvas.
Just before we touch on that, Hugh, and I think it's a good point that you make with all the players. Just one little footnote to that. Yeah, I think Hearts will get something to answer for. We'll maybe discuss that. Great signing with Rangers. I did see another one briefly, Rangers linked with Josh Windass. I don't get the policy on that. I don't see that. I don't see that. I mean, I can see Luke Graham. Luke Graham would be another really good asset, Scottish player.
You've got to freshen it up. You can't go back to back. He wasn't a great Rangers player when he was there. I've watched him play this season. He's still doing the same things. Rangers have now got an opportunity with a real blue chip signing to add on that. Let's not freshen it up, go and recruit and polish it further. Don't go back to back.
Yeah, now with that in mind, Beningame, Kent, Alan Forrest, Lewis Nielsen, possibly Cammy Devlin as well now. Shankland's gone. You're talking about Jamestown Analytics is really going to come to the fore now, because does it come to the fore on the basis that they say, here are the players, or does Derek still have that point where he says, listen, I know all the analytics tell us this, but I don't want them?
Well, see, I previewed this 1 year ago, didn't I?
Yep.
And I still hold that belief that there is a tension, at least, between what Derek's imperatives are and Jamestown Analytics are.
Does he have a stronger hand because he came within a whisker?
Or does he have a weaker hand because they lost the league when they could and possibly should have won it?
Well, he lost the league without the Jamestown Analytics, let's be honest about it. The majority of the side were there
That's
already.
what I'm saying.
It's great credit to Derek, isn't it?
Yeah, but will they look at it and say, do you know what? He, you know, I mean, it sounds crazy to say, but they'll be looking at the analytics and they'll be saying, how did we come up short? Why did we come up short? Because you're talking about, you know, a relatively low points tally to win the league.
Well, can I ask you this then, and you'll offer your tuppence worth partially on this. If you're talking about Jamestown Analytics, let's just take somebody, for example, that they had just gone for quite a number of months. They were chasing him. They wanted to get him in the summer. Then they eventually get Chesnikov. Now, if Chesnikov's stats suggest that he's going to be a player under this Jamestown Analytics data, I mean, you know, your eyes don't deceive you. 1 or 2 games maybe, but nothing to suggest that he was the guy that was ripping players up and getting service into the box party. I'm looking at him saying, I mean, they're talking about punting him as well now and bringing in Calvin Miller.
It's difficult to say that. There are people within the game that think this is pink elephant territory. And I think that there's a kind of truth in that. I know that the stats and the success that Jamestown have had at different clubs is beyond debate. I don't know how much the kind of... I know it's a controversial thing to say. A lot of it's bollocks.
Yeah.
It's with the greatest respect, right? Data and analysis matters massively more and more. But this kind of mystical element to it, I don't think Derek buys into. I think Derek needs to publicly kind of promote and talk about it in a positive way. But I think you're right. There's going to be some kind of collision course along the way, inevitably.
Well, I see. If you look at Jamestown and how they work in life in other clubs, you'll see real red flags at Hearts for them. I think Wilson, the young player, not getting minutes and going to Tottenham Hotspur. I think for Jamestown, you know, Derek could say, "Oh, he's not ready for the Premiership." Blah 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 blah. Fine, but Jamestown would sit and say, "Wait a minute, we just got rid of a player that Tottenham thinks a player." Now, that's a red flag for them. I think there'll be other red flags in the minutes given to players that they brought in, as vis-a-vis, you know, who got the minutes towards it. I think they'll be really looking very deeply at what happened in the run-in, because there's been a lot of noise about the run-in, and I think it's understandable if you get a really controversial penalty, or in Hearts' case you don't get penalties, that sucks up the oxygen.
Yeah.
But analytic people say, wait a minute, when was the last time we won an away game in the league?
In the last 2 months, that it just fell off a cliff.
Why did we draw here when we should have been winning? Why did we do... They'll not be looking at things like, well, they will, I mean, there's that indeterminate, but they won't be focusing on penalty decisions.
Yeah. And the other...
Tony Bloom, if nothing else, what he fundamentally is a gambler. Right? There's another truth, that is throwing mud at the wall a lot of the time. Some of it's not sticking. Yeah. A lot of the recruits, again, it's camouflaged over the brilliant story that Hearts have been this season. You'll be looking closely. And I don't think it paints the picture that everybody wants it to be.
Yeah, the other aspect of it as well, which, you know, I hold my hands up here, I don't know the financial circumstances of Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium, but, you know, you can look at Brighton, but Brighton still have access to, you know, what, 100, 150 million pounds? So you can still...
Broadcast money alone,
you can start to look and say, OK, there's a right good chance that you're going to try and be able to buy some really good players in European football that have got the good stats. But it begs the question, you know, Martin O'Neill's come out and said, XG, all of these things, you know, it's a new fangled aspect to it. He says, but, you know, he has to deal in reality, Hugh, and he had to deal with, okay, can this guy play? Can I get the best out of him? Can I look at him in training and say, listen, I don't care about the stats. I want you to do this particular job for me. And as for you, you're not going to be playing.
I know. There's that great dichotomy in football between what we call the old style manager and the new style analytics and data. And there's been clashes about it recently. I mean, really interesting clashes about it recently. I mean, Martin's, if you had to distill Martin's magic down, I would say you would distill it down to being able to make players play for him. I mean, that would be.
Did Rangers not sign a guy that had the best stats in Dutch league for assists? Did Rangers not recruit that guy?
What was his name? Lammers.
Yes.
And who went on to be very good when he went back to Holland as well.
It's a point in case.
But the wonderful thing about football is its unpredictability. You know, Liverpool's got this transfer committee that's filled with some of the greatest brains, and literally, I mean, guys with PhDs. And
but last year when Liverpool won the league, they were singing the praises of Mark Burchill and Richard Hughes.
I know. And then they buy. Does anybody say they bought Barley in the summer? We're all going, oh, that looks like really good buys.
Isaac was a disaster. Florian Wirtz took a while.
He's still not up to speed. There's huge doubts about Frimpong now. I was down in Liverpool for a game and the people around me were huge, and he didn't play well that day. So it's such a... It's an incredible business. I think it's really interesting at the moment at all the three clubs that would hope to go for the title next year, Celtic, Rangers and Hearts, because each of them is going to have a really huge overhaul of players in the summer.
Yeah, and I maintain one thing that I'm sticking by, Hugh. Anybody who's suggesting that suddenly Jamestown Analytics is going to turn them into a Union Saint-Gilloise or a Brighton, for that matter, the difference is the huge imbalance in the amount of money that Celtic can pour out to actually counter any golden nuggets that Hearts have, because the turnover alone suggests that Celtic can absolutely dwarf them. They can also allow themselves, Celtic, to continue with this, what I call, I don't know what the strategy is, but this mad strategy where they can have 10 players who are contributing nothing, 8 players who have gone out on loan that nobody's ever heard of again, and then they've still got a squad that would sink the Titanic, that can win them the title when they're rubbish.
Psychological blow for Hearts fans. Their best player has just now trebled his wages to go to Rangers, and he's talking, waxing lyrical about his boyhood heroes and how it's his dream and everything else. That is a blunt reality we've got with that kind of imbalance, as you call it. And the Old Firm have to up their game, and they will do. And you can't outgun it. Look at the teams in England that win promotion. It's the money that gets you there. Ipswich did it. They were paying their players twice, 3 times what the budget was in League One, and the manager's stock went so high. He was touted for the Celtic job. I spoke to an agent and went, you should see the books. It's the money that gets you where you want to be consistently. You will have your freak season. Yeah. Your brilliant freak season. You might find that Hearts have had this.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, apart from anything else, I mean, it was, and I'm going to try and cater for every, age in this. It was a Foyne-Haven Leicester City, wasn't it? I mean, it's 100-1 outsider that wins the national because every other horse falls. Leicester City just hit that golden period. But if you looked at, you know, since 1992, if you look at the winners of the English Premier League, they're all high rollers.
All high rollers, and you see where Leicester City are now. You need a diving mask to find them in the English leagues, League One now. And it was a tremendous season for them because everything clicked. They had about a core of about 3, maybe 4 players who could have played for almost any team in that division. They were top players. I think Mahrez went on, of course, to play for City. Vardy could have gone to Arsenal. Schmeichel at that time was excellent in goal, and they had a sort of stolid defence that could sit in the, you know, Maguire and Morgan that could sit in the. So everything went for them. The problem, if I was with Hearts at the moment, the problem I would be looking at Hearts is saying, right, we've got to do a revamp and we've really got to in it. But if you say a Hearts fan, how good was last season? They would say, oh, it's a great season for us. Tremendous season for us. Okay, they're really kicking the guts. Well, what a season, what a season. Then said, well, look at the points you got. That's the points that you got is roughly what will get you a long second historically.
Yes.
And
There's only two times in the last 20 years, Hugh, I think I researched it, I think it might be two, where anywhere from 84 downwards won the title.
Aye.
You know, 80 was an exception to the rule.
You know, you're talking about, I mean, you're talking about roughly, you're going to be in the early 90s to have a go at it. So Hearts have got to have another great season last season and won 4 more games.
Martin O'Neill's comments are absolutely spot on the head, on the nail, talking about XG and the gobbledygook, which is now inflicting the game. I was fortunate enough to play with guys that moved from millions of pounds or had moved from millions of pounds. It's your eyes that analyse, and you can see, and I certainly could, when players came to my club or I was at a club, the guys moved on for multi-millions of pounds. It's self-evident why they're at that level.
But I still think there's an element to it, Gordon, that we should embrace. I still think there is an element of that.
I think so. I think totally. I think the eyes comes into it, but I mean, you know, the Liverpool transfer committee has been really well chronicled because people have, you know, opened their mouths about it, and the criteria that they have is data, really data led. But it's also got tick marks for, you know, for character, for example.
Yeah.
For the eye test, for the coach, you know, the coach, you know, they could say to Klopp, I mean, for example, they said to Klopp at Manny, you know, we don't want him. His stats are pretty good. We don't like his personality. We don't like his history. You know, it tends to be a bit of an element in the dressing room and all that. And Klopp turns around and says, no, I really, really want him. So then they have a discussion and Klopp, you know, prevails.
Gets his way.
So it's a holistic thing.
What if Manchester United had Jamestown? Would they have signed Eric Cantona?
Absolutely not.
See, listen, there obviously is a role and a function, and data is very, very valuable. When you're talking to me, you get down to fine lines about deliveries into the box, accuracy, various kind of finer detail. But ultimately, and I think football will get back to it, a lot of this is job justification. If we get back to it, I think it will revert back to actually, what am I seeing, what am I getting?
Yeah, but
Josh Windass for Rangers is never a goal for me. He's in the radar of Rangers because he spends a lot of his time in social media ingratiating himself to Rangers fans. Well, got to get away from that.
Role has worked for him, of course.
Is it Ollie McBurney next for because he does the same?
Yeah,
that's unprofessional.
The one thing I would say is, you know, your eyes can see it, but I would embrace the data on certain aspects of goals. Always wins you a deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crosses. Calvin Miller is being touted because people can see that he can beat a player. They can definitely see that he can cross the ball. His assist this season has been superb.
Look at his short distance pace as well.
Absolutely, and they'll also look at people who can retain the ball.
I think Miller's. I don't think Muller was too far from coming back to Celtic at one point as well. You know, I think there was. I don't know how far the discussions went, but I think they were certainly looking at him. Miller's one of these players that does look good in the eye because we all love to look at a player like that. It's quite nimble and incompassable, but his stats will be good as well.
His stats are good, Hugh.
And if you know anybody around him, his personality is good as well, so he's not going to fail that test.
Just out of curiosity, as a one-liner on it, Ollie McBurney was mentioned by Partsy. Should he feel peeved not in the Scotland squad?
He'll feel peeved because of the amount of goals he scored, but if he actually takes himself out of it and has some perspective, and that's very difficult for all of us to do, to take ourselves out of ourselves. He'll look at it and say, well, I can see why he's not been picked, you know, like, and Steve Clark will have told him why he's not been picked, you know, the element of not being available at times, will go no stronger than that. And Clark is, There's a bit of Clark, which it's they always said about the Alf Ramsey squad. It was harder to get out the squad than it was to get in it.
Yeah.
You know, once you were in with Ramsey, you were in, and you see that with Clark. And by the way, one of the most interesting squads, I thought we could do a whole programme, is Tuchel's England squad as well, for that same reason.
Yeah,
Good point.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think they've got a great chance of winning it.
I don't think Scotland will win it, Peter.
No, England. Harry Kane. If Harry Kane stays fit, what a chance they've got, Hugh. What a season that boy's had.
Kane is now, I mean, I've always liked him, but Kane is now, the best number 9 in the world, I would say.
The finest of finest wines right at the moment. There's nobody better with their back to goal. We're talking about Shankland, right? On a level. Is there anybody better with their back to goal? And also, use of body, right? His ability to link play intelligently, finish, finesse, touch, craft. He's at the height of his powers.
Oh,
and you're right, it's terrifying.
It is. He's the best player in the world for me, and I think he's a Ballon d'Or winner, Hugh.
Yeah.
But the thing that I like about him, and this is why it's funny you said that there, and it's not something that I think a lot of people grasp. You say, "Oh, he's one of the best number 9s." He's got a shout to be the best number 10. He creates.
That's
his
one.
Passing is outrageous.
I've watched him live on a couple of occasions. One of the games I watched him live in, he was only on for 20 minutes. I went down to Tottenham Hotspur, and they were playing somebody like Noru of Romania. So I went into that game, and Santos was the manager, and he was really under pressure. And this, I think it would be a Conference League game. Anyway, everything was going okay, and then Noru scored, and he was going out of this cup. And he brought on 3 subs. The subs was Moura, the Brazilian, Son, and Kane. And I was high up in the stand, so I said, I'm just sitting there. I'm just going to sit and watch Kane for 25 minutes. You know that way you do what the ball is, just watch what he did. And it was that one, Peter, the primary 7 boy playing with the primary 1s. He was so far ahead, even like guys, there was Spurs had good players in that team.
Yeah.
He was just so far ahead of everybody. Movement, every touch was perfect, every pass was perfect. And they won, they scored 3 goals. I think he got a hat-trick 20 minutes. Then I saw him at Celtic Park as well, where I thought Bayern Munich were excellent at Celtic Park. And I just think, he's just not centre forward. He's everything.
Yeah,
He also does something that the truly great players do. Turn up all the time. He's always there.
Yeah.
He's consistently selected. He makes himself available. But what makes him more important to England, I believe, in this tournament, he's a calming influence. He's a leader. He does it with a dignity and class. The players respond to that. I think that calm worries me because there's real belief. They've left players out that would be not even first pick for Scotland, but how on earth have we got that amount of talent?
Yeah.
They can afford to just...
Well, Foden and I watched Palmer down at Anfield as well. He didn't have his best game, but that eye test, just watch the way he plays. I just go, my God, what player that is.
Yeah.
Foden, the same. Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mean, these are all guys, they're all going to be watching Coronation Street during the summer.
I wouldn't have thought.
You say to yourself, but I think one of the strongest things going for England, and it worries me as well, is that the basics are good. They're all Premier League players, you know. They're all, most of them, Champions League players. And in certain positions, they've got real strength. I think they've got strength in midfield. I think they've got strength wide. I think they've got strength at centre forward, which always gets you over the line. And the manager is a top manager. He's a top manager. And if he can keep everybody on board, and the way he's picking teams, he's just telling them, I'm not picking the best players. I'm picking the best players for the team.
What a great line it is, though. German wins England World Cup. Crazy how times have moved on. But I agree with you, Hugh. He's been superb. A couple of things before we finish. Obviously, there's so much that we will talk about in the summer with the World Cup as well, which hopefully you guys, bearing in mind your schedules and the things that you like to do. Hugh, we've got a great programme coming up, you and I. I'll not let the cat out of the bag just yet in case, obviously, some of the people who haven't got a brain in their head heads start copying us, which is
No, for the first time.
which has been my 14-year experience here. But we've got a good wee feature that I think a lot of people will enjoy. I'm looking forward to that. We'll do lots of programming over the summer that I know you're going to enjoy. But Arsenal PSG, where's your money on this one? Is it just that overriding feeling that PSG are the best team in Europe?
I think I'll tell you who I want to win. I want PSG to win all day, not long, and twice on Sunday. I love watching them play. I love the players that are in that team. Love the way that Dembele has come from being a sort of not dismal spell, but kind of mediocre spell at Barcelona and became a Ballon d'Or winner. I love Cava. I love Vitinha. I just love the way he plays. So I want them to win.
Yeah.
Now, I've got worries about Arsenal though, because Arsenal, everybody that I've talked to about Arsenal in England keep telling me that Arsenal are almost infallible, just the way they play this mechanic, rotating football with very few errors in it. And I think it was last year's semi-final, Peter, between PSG and Arsenal, and it was a lot closer than people said at the time.
Yeah.
So my short answer is, I don't know who's going to win it. I'm not strong on who's going to win it, but I desperately want PSG to win it.
Totally agree with you. I think Arsenal, they play in a league which lacks that. The game's moved on now. The top elite teams, there's a cut and thrust, exhilarating attack, emphasis, down the flanks. I think Arsenal struggle with that, and I think they've got too much quality.
Yeah, I get your Dembele. You know me in midfielders, Vitinha. He's on another planet. And my favourite player on that side is Kvaratskhelia on the left. I mean, when he decides to go past players, it's you know what it reminds you? It reminds you of just you're out your mates out in the park, you just dribble.
It reminds me of the old guys that you were talking about the top 75 guys. These old guys in football, like this is for the older amongst you. It reminds me again like Rab Prentice at Hearts.
Yes, but there was a Kenny Aird. There was lots of players.
Dennis McQuaid.
Yeah.
They were big gangly. Kenny was smaller, but it's that gangly guys that just sort of fell past players,
David Templeton's dad.
Here's a brilliant for your top 50.
Yeah.
How's Ted McMinn not in it?
Well, realistically, listen,
you know what I mean?
I know where you're coming from, but you know, as I started, I threw out a top 50 a couple of weeks ago because I thought to myself, oh, here are the people that everybody will start to really congregate around, and then I thought to myself in the last week or two, I thought I'm going to have to really start to look at players that maybe we're not thinking about, because it'll be a great argument. I'm going to get former players, yourselves, you know, and some fans to offer their tuppence worth on it. But here's some of the players that I actually looked at and thought, right, we've got to think about these. And I put down Paulo Di Canio for 1 year, sensational. Heelhouse, Jess, Archibald, Mo Johnston, Alan McGregor, Charlie Nicholas, David Weir, James McFadden. One of the ones that for me I think is an absolute shoe-in to be in the top 50, possibly a real argument to be in the top 10 for me, is Derek Johnson.
Why?
And then you're looking, you're saying Stuart McCall, Paul Lambert, Claudio Caniggia, Giorgio Nimzadze, Caballero, Dado Pricho, Rudy Scatchell, Edouard, James Forrest. You know, and then I'm saying to myself, I mean, Mark Hateley's, you know, going to be high ranked for it. What about John McGinn? What about Ronald de Boer, Craig Levine? I mean, can you think of others that you mentioned Eric Black, which I think is a great shout. Jim Bett's a great shout. Ian Durant, for me.
John Robertson's in it.
John Robertson will. Well, we haven't determined the 50, but we're going to. But Rob was an absolute shoe-in, isn't he? But I'm thinking about the ones that you're suddenly saying to yourself that will cause the argument. By the way, we're now going to give you 50 to number 41, and then people are going, what?
Well, you've got Sosie at Hibs as well.
Sosie's a great shout, you know.
Latapi.
in it.
That's what I'm saying.
Russell Latapi's got to have a shout, hasn't he?
You
know,
even go back to things like, you know, if you talk, there's almost a Maverick section with something like Simon Stainrod.
That's a great part of this, because it's not
Kevin McAllister.
I know.
You know,
so it's not the best, right? Because we know who the best top 5 really roughly are, right?
Well, we know the top 10 who are the top.
It's who are you identified with. It's who made you become a football supporter. It's who you had up on your wall. Eric Black, I loved.
Did you have Eric Black up on your wall? Seriously? I'm going to phone him and tell him.
No, but I remember going into I was about 9 and I went into a hairdresser's in Postle Park with a picture of his shoot with Charlie Nicholas. He signed for Arsenal with the hair. And I asked for Charlie Nicholas.
Did you?
Eric Black is the best header of a football that's been in Scottish football in my lifetime.
Yeah,
Right,
isn't it amazing how you said this, Hugh? And this is amazing how people can influence you. Because when I was younger, Charlie Nicholas was a genius. I mean, much maligned by Celtic fans, wrongly in my opinion. Because if you've got an opinion, you know, you get a lot of people who just hate you for it. Charlie Nicholas for me was a genius. But again, as Parksy mentioned there, he was an icon and a style icon as well, and he wore leather trousers.
That's right.
So I went into Glasgow and I bought myself a pair of leather trousers. Now the difference between Charlie Nicholas wearing leather trousers and me, it's just wrong. I shouldn't have had them. And while I'm in the nightclub, I'm thinking, I shouldn't have done this because I'm sweating like mad here. I don't think I can finish this dance. How did Charlie do it? Then I realised Charlie didn't really dance. Just stood at the end of the bar, cool as ice.
Your eyes test. I played with both Charlie Nicholas and George McCluskey. And my eyes test, having played with both of them, George was a better player.
Who?
George was a better player. And see, when you speak to people, they might agree with me. Charlie had something unbelievably special. He had a flamboyance in his play, which very few people could match. But see, for brain, George McCluskey was a better player.
Well, it's a great argument, isn't it?
McCluskey, I was at a do one night and George was doing a Q&A and somebody said, yeah, this is George McCluskey, one of the most underrated Celtic players ever. And I says, no, he's no. I mean, if you look at what George did with Celtic, he was part of 10 men won the league.
Yeah.
Scored in a Scottish Cup final. I mean, McCluskey was a beautiful player. George would tell you as well that in his family, he might not have been the best player in the family, but that's another story.
Yeah, but see that point we're talking about? I mean, you mentioned there, you know, we're talking about Kenny Aird, the Rab Prentice, another person who sadly passed away recently that I think is well worthy of a mention. You know, the wingers were 10 a penny, Quinton Young.
Oh, Cutty Young was...
Yeah, and then Willie Johnson.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? Willie Johnson's worthy of it. And I'll give you one who just passed away that I think was an absolute genius, but you know, Alec Crotley was great.
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
Was great. But that Hibs team, that's what I'm saying. See that Hibs team, that was the best team, the Scottish team I saw that didn't win the league. That Hibs team in the early 70s. I could tell you.
Yeah.
I couldn't
but
tell
fortunately, our cut-off point's 75, Hugh.
Aye.
Does Joe Harper get a shout?
Joe Harper's got to do. I think Harper was that perennial goal scorer, scored a hat-trick in a cup final and finished in the losing side. Joe was a...
See, if you win the World Cup with Italy and you played in the Scottish Premiership,
Gattuso?
does that get you in the top 50? If you're talking about...
Yeah.
You're
talking about Gattuso?
Yes.
I mean, Canadians a shoe-in for me.
You've got to talk about Newman and Van Bronckhorst as well.
Well, Ronald de Boer for me.
Aye.
I mean, Ronald de Boer up at Tannadice, this is my favourite story of him. And if you ever get a chance to be in their company, the two of them, Ronald and Frank, Ronald's slightly more extrovert about it all, but Rangers played up at Tannadice and I was working for STV as a reporter, and I kid you not, Hugh, it was a sandpit. I mean, it was a terrible park, and I think Rangers won 4-1. He scored a goal, which was outrageous. He took the mickey out of players, and at the end of the thing, I'm down at trackside and I said, Ronald, I said, that was a masterclass. And he looked at me and he went, yes, this is normal. and I couldn't stop laughing. I thought, that sums it up. Oh, brilliant. You know, I've never met one.
I remember playing in a 12 o'clock kick-off in a closed-door game against Rangers when they signed Gascoigne, De Boer, Alberts, the whole crew. And I remember being on that pitch. Basil Boley was making his debut. And you're talking about levels. Oh my God!
Yeah, it's going to be a great one. I mean, even somebody put up Billy Stark. Starkey was a silky player, you know.
Peter Weir, there's people like that.
Peter Weir. Well, I don't know how we're going to get to 50, but by the way, I'll tell you one thing, Hugh. When you go out and about, as I know you do, you'll get pelters. Okay, do you want to give me the 5 goal scorers in the 1970 World Cup?
For Brazil, Pelé, Gerson, Jairzinho, and Carlos Alberto. And for Italy, Bonacegna.
I would have put my life on you getting that right. That is top notch.
Pele, Gerson,
I
Jorginho,
just looked at the answers
Carlos
anyway,
Alberto,
so that's brilliant.
and Bonacegna is a great quiz question, isn't it?
The great thing about, one of the things about Jorginho, I think was the first man, I think there's been ever since, but he scored in every game in the World Cup.
Yes. Another thing about it, which I can't work out for the life of me, it was in colour. Hugh had a telly, and at that time there was great players playing elsewhere. There was one playing in a number 10 for Peru, and his name was Cubias. And how the hell we didn't know that he was going to return in 78 and still be a great player, I'll never know.
Was terrific team.
Can I ask the Oracle a question? Did Garrincha have one eye?
Well, yeah, he had certainly impeded. The thing about him was the big disability he had was his leg. One of his legs was shorter than the other.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And that's how he did that hairpin. There's a lot of people in Brazil. I've actually been talking to. I'm doing a big feature in Brazil at the moment, so I've been talking to a lot of Brazilian journalists, and of a certain age. And there's a lot of argument in Brazil. A lot of people in Brazil think Garrincha was better than Pele. It's an argument. It wouldn't be for, but for them they say because Garrincha was everything.
Well, listen, there will be a link at the bottom of the page or somewhere in the description of the Journos show where you can click on it and pick your maybe your favourite player. It might be your favourite player. There is a link somewhere related to this show. You can click on it. It takes you to the website for your top 50 players, and all you have to do is register who you think should be in that 50. It might be your best player. It might not necessarily just somebody that's brought joy to you and you think they're worthy of being in the top 50 players that have played in the Premier League since 1975. We'll get that panel together. We'll pick 50. You might disagree with us, but the good news is one lucky person picked at random will get the chance to commission Gio Thompson to paint their favourite player on canvas, and we'll hand that over to you. So click on the link, enjoy that. Thank you to Hugh, thank you to Parsley. It's been a great show. Hopefully you've enjoyed it too. Thank you for listening on the podcast, and thank you for watching on YouTube.